Hey book lovers, Kaylee here. Welcome back to the Enchanted Library, and it is time for my November wrap-up. In November, I started a new job, so a lot of time has been devoted to that because there is a lot of work involved with it. So I didn't get to read as many books as I would have liked, but I still got to 3 that I will tell you about today, and 2 of them are actually 2 books that I read for the Tome Topple Round 7 readathon. The first book that I finished this month is actually one that is really not in my general wheelhouse. It is a rom-com contemporary situation with a really ridiculous premise, but it just drew me in. So I ended up reading The Paris Wedding by Charlotte Nash, and I ended up giving this about a 3-star because it was an entertaining read, but I just had a lot of issues with it in general. So this story is all about Rachel West, and she is a girl from Australia who owns a farm, and at the very start of this book she is dealing with the passing of her mother. Through dealing with the fallout of such a tragedy, she is actually really internalizing a lot of things and doesn't really know what to do with the rest of her life because she did put her life on hold to take care of her mother for the past 10 years until she ends up getting an invitation to her ex-boyfriend's wedding in Paris, all expenses paid, and basically the entire town is invited. So her, along with her friend who is her +1, and a couple of bickering neighbors, all go over to Paris in order to celebrate this wedding. So I don't know about you, but I don't know many people who would get married out of the country and then pay for everybody, like their room, their board, their flight. So this, I really had to suspend a lot of disbelief with it, but it still, like I said, kept me entertained. I do appreciate the realistic response to a character losing a family member and how she had to deal with that, but inherently her character is not a likable character, so I find that usually difficult with a lot of stories. But if you enjoy an unlikable character being thrown into odd circumstances, then definitely pick this up. But also, I think one of the reasons that I kept coming back to it was because of the romance side of things. It's a rom-com basically, so there is a little bit of a love triangle, but not exactly, if that makes any sense. Probably not. Just read it to find out. It was entertaining, like I said. The next book that I ended up reading ended up getting a 4.75 to a 4.75 star rating from me, and I don't think it is any surprise that it is A Gathering of Shadows by V.E. Schwab. So this is book 2 in the A Darker Shade of Magic series, which I started the previous month, I believe it was. But I was able to continue on with A Gathering of Shadows, and oh my gosh, if you want to see some of my live reactions to things, check out my Tome Topple readathon vlog, which I will put a link up above my head, and you can see my reactions because there's a couple of things that ended up happening that I was just shocked about. And then the ending, I knew that there were no pages left, but when the last sentence happened, I still flipped the page thinking that there might be more. So I think that that is the sign of a good book, when even though you know it's done, you still flip the page thinking that you might be able to get a bit more because you do not want it to end on such a cliffhanger. So I really did have a lot of fun with this story, but I also really appreciated how V.E. Schwab had integrated the effects that the events of the first book would have on all of the characters, because it's actually something that they deal with. They all have their own insecurities, they all have their own mental issues in regards to the events from the previous book, and it was just done so well. And there's a lot more that I could obviously say about this book, but I do not want to give spoilers, so I won't. I will just say that I loved this book, and I cannot wait to read the last one, which I think I will be doing in December. So that is just, this series is just taking over my life this year. Also, Kel and Lila are my everything, so yeah, I just need more of them. And the last book that I read in November was Obsidio by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This is the last book in the Illuminae series, and I have mixed feelings about this book. I ended up giving it about a 3.5 on Goodreads, just because I felt like there was a fair amount of filler information that was put into this book that wasn't necessary and didn't end up applying to the final plot. Again, if you want to hear my live reaction to reading this book, I will just refer you back to the Tome Topple readathon vlog. So this is the conclusion of the story of Bitek infiltrating Carenza 4 and how everything sort of unravels. But there were a few things in this story that I found a little too convenient. It did take me still on a wild ride for about the last 150 pages or so, and I will admit that I did cry a little bit, but even with all of that being said, yes, I did have some issues with this book. Like I said, too much filler, essentially too many convenient plot points. I did enjoy some of the reveals that happened in this story. I thought that they were really fun, and I really did like the interaction of the characters that we had been introduced to up until this point. I just wish that we had more of it. So a little bit of a mixed bag with the conclusion of this trilogy, but I still really recommend the trilogy as a whole because it is such an interesting, unique read. So those are the 3 books that I was able to read in the month of November. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have read any of these or what your thoughts on them are. Do you agree with me about Obsidio? I'm kind of curious because I know how much of a beloved series that the Illuminae Files is. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more content. I do put out new videos every weekend. And until next time, keep reading.